Hey, today we're going to talk about juicing. Now, this is a topic that I don't think I've ever really covered before, and I wanted to share about some of the benefits. I'm sure many of you are aware that there are benefits to juicing, and also like some really delicious kind of combos I think would be quite good depending on what your nutrient needs are. Now, I'd like to remind you, I'm not a medical practitioner, nor am I a nutritionist. So you can do your own research. You can seek out professional help in regards to those aspects. And I'm also not making any claims that juicing is going to cure X, Y, and Z. It may assist with X, Y, and Z. Now, I'm sure if you know what juicing are, but just in case you don't, it's basically when you are extracting the liquids out of foods, usually fruits and vegetables, and then forming it into a liquid to then be able to drink. Yes. Now, there's many different types of ways of juicing. Obviously, you can buy juice from a shop. Often you'll find, depending on where you live, many of the juices will actually be like reconstituted juice. It won't actually be fresh. It won't be cold pressed. And hence why juicing at home can have its benefits. Also, you may find that juicing at home is actually cheaper. And it doesn't matter whether you're more of a conventional fruit and veg person or you go organic. Either way, it will usually be cheaper. Obviously, it also has other elements to it as well, in that you can really personalize what it is that you're putting in your juice. Maybe you have particular herbs that you want to incorporate from your garden. Maybe you have particular fruits and vegetables that you're actually growing yourself. It's another great way to get those extra nutrients in. And for many people, they find that juicing can actually increase your level of vitamins and minerals that you are getting. It's almost like a liquid multivitamin is how I would see it. Now, I wouldn't necessarily replace meals with juicing unless you're going through some kind of particular procedure or health protocol. There might be times where people will just drink juice. They might do a juice feast or a juice fast for a number of days or weeks or whatever. I'm not recommending anything like that here. And we're not really talking about those sorts of elements either. There might be times where people are going to go through like a particular medical procedure and they might replace, or they might have other things going on where they're not able to chew food and whatnot. So juicing might then become uh, maybe a replacement for some meals to a certain degree, but it's definitely more there to give you a booster. So it's not trying to necessarily replace your meals all the time. Now, some people find that having juice is going to boost their levels of energy. It can also support in detoxification. It can improve your digestion. It can strengthen your immunity. And some people report that they have more of a glowing skin, and there's kind of these anti-aging effects that can come from it. Now, obviously, depending on what fruits and vegetables you're juicing and the quality of them is going to depend on what minerals and vitamins you're getting and what elements of your health, your body, your mind, your emotions, your spirit that it's activating or releasing. And I would say probably one of my highest recommendations, but you can use your own discernment in when you are consuming juice, is to ensure that there's a lot more vegetable content than there is fruit content, because it's quite easy for us to over consume on liquid, fruit juice, and that can have its like uses and benefits if you're really, I don't know, maybe you're a high performing athlete, you do endurance sport. There's like particular aspects or particular kinds of people that would benefit from, maybe some real high fruit content juices. But for most people, they would really benefit from ensuring that there's more vegetables in the juice than there is fruit. Now, for some people who have become accustomed to a particular level of palate, and so for some people, they might have a juice that others would go, oh, this is great. And others will go, oh, it's too bitter or it's not sweet enough for me. So figuring out where you are at. And then if you're finding that you're having to have quite a lot of fruit in your juice, then maybe you can adjust your palate over time to incorporate more of the vegetables in there. So I'm going to talk about maybe like five 5 kind of combinations of juice that, you know, they have their own particular uses for. One of them would be like what I would call like a green vitality juice. So that's things like kale, cucumber, celery, green apple, lemon, and ginger. And you'll often find, you know, some of us think of fruit as things like oranges and bananas and mangoes, but little do people recognize that things like cucumber, capsicum are actually fruits as well. So, you know, this is going back to what I was saying before. You could try and replace some of the sweeter fruits with some of the less sweeter fruits. Things like cucumbers are an example of that. Just to get that liquid in, get some nutrients in, but there's not like super high sugar in that. Now, I'm not saying like I'm no proponent of like no carb diet or keto or anything like that. As many of you may be aware, I've been eating vegan for like over 10 years now. It's like nearly 11 years. And I'm not really a proponent for cutting out carbohydrates. I eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, and, you know, I do have things like potatoes, and I'll have rice and all of that sort of stuff. I don't find I operate that well, or I don't find that I operate to my best when I start taking out those things. So that's just where I'm at with that. So yeah, going back to what I was saying. So this juice could be quite good for like detoxifying, hydrating yourself as well, and it's can be quite anti-inflammatory and quite good with the digestion. So the next one I would want to talk about is what I would call like the beetroot boost. Now that's things like beetroot, carrot, apple. You know, maybe you can get your hands on some lime, depending on your climate. You know, I'm making recommendations of these like combinations, but if you don't have a particular fruit or vegetable that I'm listing here in abundance, you can swap it for something else. You know, it's not like you need to stick to it like this. I'm just saying that these are a couple of juices that can be quite good for particular things, and yeah, give it a go. Now with that one, I would say it's quite good with for supporting the liver. It can be quite good for regulating your blood pressure. Great for like stamina and circulation. And what I found quite interesting over the years of observing food and looking at colors of food, and because I also, you know, have other elements that I'm interested in of health, and I notice how particular colors can be associated with particular areas in the body. You know, so when I'm looking at beetroot, I can often associate it with like the root chakra and the red color. You know, when I'm looking at green things, I'm looking at like the heart chakra. So I also like to, I can't help myself. Like I just go to that place of, you know, color therapy. What other things are we associate with particular colors? What elements am I working with? What is my body requiring? What am I needing to move? What kind of blockages have I got going on in particular areas of the body? And then I'll often find I'm actually gravitating to foods of those particular colors. It's really interesting. And I'm sure some of you may find that yourself, or for others, you know, that's not really your cup of tea, and that's okay too. Now, another combination, I would call it like the immunity shield, and that would be things like carrot, orange, turmeric root, and if you can put in a pinch of like black pepper. And this can be quite good for like, you know, it's got these really powerful anti-inflammatories. It's very high in vitamin C as well. And what you may find over time when you start making more of these juices is that you'll start to notice that there are actually particular vegetables that are quite sweet. You know, if you get a really good beetroot or you get a really good carrot, you can actually start to taste like there's actually a sweetness in that, you know, and it's not always, doesn't always need to be a lot of fruit, you know, and you can play around with the ratios of these kinds of things as well. Now, another one which I feel is probably quite good for many of us these days with the way, you know, there's this scientific recognition between gut and brain health and just gut health in general and how that really affects your whole system. You know, and it's not just also about like how are you digesting food, how are you digesting information? You know, we're in this kind of period where if you are not discerning, you'll often find yourself being swamped with information that may not actually be really that useful for your day-to-day life and what you actually are wanting to create, wanting to engage in. So yeah, digestion is it's a really big thing for many of us. And this one, I would call it like a gut soother juice. So we're looking at things like fennel, celery, cucumber, and a bit of green apple. And this is just really going to help with soothing the digestion. It can also help with reducing bloating, and obviously there's a level of like hydration. It can just really sort of calm that gut lining as well. You'll often find in Ayurvedic medicine, things like fennel are often used for calming digestion and calming the nervous system. There's a big connection between there, right? The nervous system and the digestion. It's almost can't not see that when you start to become quite observant, or you are observant of your own health and health of others. And the last one I want to talk on is like a zinc and iron booster. So we're looking at things like spinach, parsley, cucumber, and pineapple. And this is, really rich in chlorophyll. It's rich in iron. It's also just got many immune boosting properties. Now, I am aware that some people have food allergies or intolerances. I'm not recommending that you consume anything that you are allergic to or intolerant to. Obviously, if there's foods that you're trying out and you haven't had before, try small doses, see what that's like for you. Have a practice of actually tuning in with yourself after you've eaten something, or while you're eating something, or even before you're eating something as well, and recognizing how your body is adjusting to what it is that you're consuming. And yeah, there's just like so many times or aspects or events in our day that we can incorporate a juice. I'm also saying you can have like little juice shots. Like, you don't have to be having like cups and cups and cups of juice. Like I said, this could be seen as like a liquid multivitamin. You don't normally put your hand in a bag of multivitamins and just put them all in your mouth. You would have, I guess most people just have one or two multivitamins, right? This can be just like little shots of juices. It's best to have it fresh, obviously, but depending on the lifestyle that you're living, maybe you might have to make up a 1 liter juice and then you consume that throughout that week, or you have a number of just juices that are there sitting in glass bottles in your fridge. They will lose their nutrients. Once they start being juiced, their nutrients do start to break down and they don't have as high level of nutrients. But depending on your lifestyle, if you're in a way that you just don't have time to juice every day, but you still want to get some nutrients in, then it's not the end of the world if you do juice and it lasts for a number of days and you consume it over a number of days. A lot of people love having a morning juice. There's people who are really into like having juice before they engage in physical activity, like a lot of exercise. Some people like to have a juice when they're kind of in an afternoon slump. Like there's scientific research to show that there's a particular time in the afternoon where most people's energy will slump. And a lot of us are kind of living lifestyles where we're trying to fight that. We're trying to work through that. We're not going, oh, actually, maybe we might need a half an hour little nap. Depending on the culture that you're in and the lifestyle that you're living, you may not have the capacity to do such things. So, yeah, a little juice in that time period in the afternoon can help you just sort of pick you up your energy. And then also, a lot of people like to use juice when they have coming out of obviously through cleansing purposes, but also through like fasting. So some people might do dry fasting or water fasting, and they'll often break their fast through entering in juices, because your body's getting a lot of nutrients, but it's also not asking your body to digest a whole lot of fiber. I'm not saying that getting rid of fiber in your diet is a good thing. For some people, they might recommend that for particular purposes. But when you're coming out of a fast, it's really helpful for the body just to be gentle on that digestion. That's why you see people who will, be eating things like watermelon and all kinds of like melons and just really high watery foods that are quite easy for the body to sort of digest when it hasn't had to digest things for a number of days or a number of weeks. So yeah, this is my vlog about juicing. I can't believe I have not done a vlog about juicing before. I used to do so many food vlogs and never really talked about juicing. I guess it's also because I've never really had a juicer. I just recently bought one, and before that I would just sort of make do with what I could. If I wanted to make something that was like really green, you know, I'd sort of blend it up and in the blender, but it's not quite the same. You don't have a juicer. And there's all sorts of juicers out there, like, you know, you can get secondhand ones. Some are easier to clean, some are more expensive, some are more like old school. I've seen some juicers recently that are actually, they don't require electricity. They are very much like manual juicers, and they just have, they're built in a way, it's like a contraption where you might pull on a lever and then something will, you know, there's only certain things you can juice with those kinds of things. It might be quite hard to juice vegetables, but if you were, you know, wanting to juice like orange or pomegranate, it, you know, it's a presser and you would press it down and it would juice, and very easy to clean. So, but I wouldn't recommend a juicer like that if you're wanting to get some more vegetables in your juice. So yeah, if you've got any questions, maybe you have a juice combo that you really like, welcome to leave that in the comment section below, and we'll see you again soon.